The rain pounded against the windshield as Sarah clutched the steering wheel, her knuckles white with tension. She never expected that a flat tire would lead her to the man who would change her life forever, or that his act of kindness would uncover a truth so shocking that neither of them was prepared for what came next. If you think this is just another feel-good story about strangers meeting by chance, I promise you'll need tissues before we're done. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe now, because the moment these two discover their unexpected connection will leave you speechless. Mike Donovan wiped the grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. The small auto shop he'd built from nothing was quiet that evening, most of his employees gone for the day. Rain hammered against the metal roof, creating a symphony of pings and patter that usually brought him peace after a long day of work. As a single father running his own business, moments of quiet were rare and precious. He was just about to lock up when headlights swept across the front of the shop, illuminating the rain in ghostly streaks. A small blue sedan pulled in, moving slowly, the telltale wobble of a flat tire evident even through the downpour. Mike sighed, glancing at his watch. His son Jason would be waiting at the babysitter's, but something about the desperate way the car limped into his lot made him pause. The driver's door opened, and a woman emerged, immediately drenched by the relentless rain. She was professionally dressed but disheveled, clutching a portfolio to her chest as if it contained something precious. "We're closed," Mike called out, but even as the words left his mouth, he was already reaching for his tools. The woman approached, rainwater streaming down her face. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "I know it's late, but I have an interview tomorrow morning that could change everything for me and my daughter. I can't afford to miss it." There was something in her eyes, a determination mixed with vulnerability, that reminded Mike of himself 5 years ago when he'd been struggling to keep his business afloat while raising Jason alone. "Let me take a look," he said, grabbing his jacket to shield them both from the rain. As Mike worked on changing her tire, Sarah Matthews stood under the awning of his shop, watching this stranger kneel in puddles to help her. She'd been on her own since her husband abandoned her and their daughter Emma 3 years ago, leaving nothing but debts and broken promises. Tomorrow's job interview represented hope, a chance at financial stability and a better life for Emma. "You have no idea what this means to me," she said, her voice barely audible above the rain. Mike glanced up, offering a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "I think I might." "Single parent?" Sarah nodded, surprised. "Me too," he said, returning to his work. "My son Jason is 7. His mom decided family life wasn't for her when he was 2. What neither of them realized as they exchanged these simple confidences was that their lives were already intertwined in ways they couldn't imagine. The truth waiting to be discovered would shake the foundations of everything they thought they knew about their past, and potentially destroy the connection forming between them. The tire changed, Mike refused payment despite Sarah's insistence. "Pay it forward someday," he said, handing her his business card. "And good luck with your interview." Sarah arrived home to find her babysitter, Mrs. Patel, reading to Emma. After paying the sitter and tucking her daughter in, Sarah found herself staring at Mike's business card. On impulse, she sent him a text thanking him again and letting him know she'd arrived home safely. His response came quickly, "Glad to hear it. Knock em dead tomorrow." That simple exchange marked the beginning of something neither could have anticipated. Sarah aced her interview the next day, securing a position as marketing director for a local company. To celebrate, she decided to bring coffee and donuts to Mike's shop. What was meant to be a quick thank you visit turned into an hour-long conversation as they discovered shared interests and complementary senses of humor. Over the following weeks, their friendship deepened. Mike introduced Sarah to Jason, a bright-eyed boy with his father's easy smile and mechanical aptitude. Sarah brought Emma to the shop one Saturday, watching as the shy 5-year-old gradually warmed to Mike's gentle patience as he showed her how an engine worked. "My daddy used to fix cars too," Emma said innocently, causing an awkward silence. Sarah had rarely heard Emma mention her father, who had never shown any interest in maintaining contact. Is that right? Mike said, his voice carefully neutral as he glanced at Sarah. I don't really remember him, Emma continued, her small fingers tracing the outline of a wrench. But I have his picture. Later, after the children were occupied with a game, Sarah explained to Mike that Emma's father had walked out when she was 2, disappearing completely. The last I heard, he'd moved across the country. No child support, no birthday cards, nothing. Mike's expression darkened. Some people don't deserve the title of parent. What Sarah didn't share, what she couldn't bring herself to say, was that despite everything, Emma still asked about her father. And lately, as Sarah watched Mike with Jason, she found herself wondering what it would be like for Emma to have a father figure in her life again. If you're feeling the connection building between these two broken families, you're not alone. But trust me when I say that what happens next will change everything. Hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss any of our stories about life's unexpected turns. As summer turned to fall, Mike and Sarah's friendship evolved into something deeper. Their first official date was a picnic while their children played in the park. Their second was dinner after the kids were asleep, with Mrs. Patel watching both children. By their third date, they were discussing the future, cautiously optimistic about the possibility of blending their families. Emma asked if you were going to be her new daddy, Sarah admitted one evening as they sat on her porch swing, watching the sunset. Mike's heart swelled. And how would you feel about that? Someday, I mean. Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder. Terrified. Hopeful. Everything in between. It was Emma's birthday when the first crack appeared in their perfect new beginning. Sarah had invited Mike and Jason to the small celebration at her home. As Emma unwrapped Mike's gift, a child-sized tool set, her face lit up with joy. Now I can fix cars like you and my real daddy, she exclaimed. The innocent comment might have passed unremarked, except that Emma ran to her room and returned with the photograph she'd mentioned months earlier. See? That's my daddy fixing a car too. Mike took the worn photograph, a casual politeness that transformed into stunned silence as he stared at the image. The color drained from his face. Mike? What's wrong? Sarah asked, alarmed by his reaction. His voice, when he finally spoke, was barely a whisper. I know this man. The photograph showed a younger version of a man Mike had once considered a brother. David Reynolds had been his best friend and business partner when he first opened the garage. They'd had a bitter falling out over money 5 years ago, with David leaving town after embezzling from their business, around the same time he'd apparently abandoned Sarah and Emma. That's not possible, Sarah said, taking the photo back with trembling hands. His name was Daniel Matthews. Mike shook his head slowly. He used a different name with you, but I'd recognize him anywhere. David Reynolds. He nearly destroyed my business before he disappeared. The revelation sent shockwaves through their budding relationship. The man who had abandoned Sarah and Emma was the same man who had betrayed Mike's trust and nearly ruined him financially. The coincidence seemed too cruel to be random. Did he ever mention me? Mike asked, his voice strained. Or the garage? Sarah shook her head, struggling to process this information. He said he worked for a corporate auto chain. I never knew. I never suspected. The birthday party continued for the children's sake, but a new tension hung between Mike and Sarah. That night, after the children were asleep, they sat at Sarah's kitchen table, piecing together the timeline of David/Daniel's deceptions. He must have been living a double life, Sarah said, her voice hollow. He told me he was working late so many nights. I thought he was having an affair, but he was actually with me at the garage, Mike finished. And stealing from both of us. The discovery threatened everything they'd been building. Sarah withdrew, overwhelmed by the humiliation of learning her ex-husband's deceptions went even deeper than she'd known. Mike, haunted by memories of his former friend's betrayal, found himself questioning whether his feelings for Sarah had been influenced by some subconscious desire for revenge. For 2 weeks, they barely spoke. The children, who had grown close, couldn't understand the sudden distance. Jason asked repeatedly when they would see Emma again. Emma cried herself to sleep, believing she'd done something wrong by showing the photograph. If you're feeling the heartbreak right now, I understand. But don't stop watching, because what these two do next reveals the true strength of the human spirit. Like this video if you believe some connections are strong enough to overcome even the most painful coincidences. It was Jason who ultimately bridged the gap. Without telling his father, he called Sarah from Mike's phone one evening. "Emma's really sad," he said simply. "And my dad is too. He pretends he's not, but I can tell." Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "I'm sad too, Jason." "Then why don't you come over? Dad made too much spaghetti again." That innocent invitation led to Sarah and Emma appearing at Mike's door that evening. The awkwardness between the adults was palpable, but watching their children's joy at being reunited broke something loose in both their hearts. After the children were occupied with a movie, Mike and Sarah stepped onto his small back porch. "I've been thinking," Mike said, his voice rough with emotion. "What happened with David, or Daniel, whatever his real name was, it's part of both our stories. But it doesn't have to define what happens next." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "I've been so afraid that every time you look at me, you see him and what he did to you." Mike shook his head firmly. "When I look at you, I see the woman who's rebuilding her life with grace and strength. The woman who's raising an amazing daughter despite everything she's been through." He paused, gathering courage. "The woman I'm falling in love with." The confession hung between them, fragile and powerful. "I'm falling in love with you too," Sarah whispered. "And that terrifies me more than anything David ever did." Their reconciliation wasn't immediate or simple. They agreed to move forward slowly, with complete honesty and regular conversations about their fears and doubts. They also made a decision that would ultimately lead to the most unexpected chapter of their story. Together, they hired a private investigator to locate David/Daniel. Not for revenge or money, but for closure, and for Emma, who deserved to know the truth about her father when she was old enough to understand. 3 months later, the investigator called with news that left them both speechless. David Reynolds, aka Daniel Matthews, had died in a car accident 2 years earlier in Arizona. He'd been living under yet another name, with another family who knew nothing of his past. The news brought a complex mix of emotions: grief for what might have been, relief that the specter of his return no longer hung over them, and a strange sense of freedom to move forward without his shadow. On a crisp autumn day, Mike took Sarah and both children to a quiet spot by the lake. While the kids skipped stones across the water, he knelt on one knee and presented her with a simple ring. "Our story didn't start the way most love stories do," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "But I think that makes what we've built even more precious. I want to spend the rest of my life showing you and Emma what real love and commitment look like. Will you marry me?" Sarah's yes was immediate and certain. As they embraced, Emma and Jason ran over, alerted by Sarah's happy tears. "Are we going to be a real family now?" Emma asked, her small face serious. Mike lifted her into his arms. "We already are, sweetheart. This just makes it official." Their wedding was small but joyful, with Jason serving as best man and Emma as flower girl. During the ceremony, they included a special moment for the children, with Mike making vows not just to Sarah but to Emma as well. "I promise to be the father you deserve," he said, kneeling to her level. "To support your dreams, dry your tears, and love you as my own." Not to be outdone, Jason had insisted on making his own vows to Sarah, solemnly promising to pick up my socks and help with the dishes, most of the time. 1 year after their wedding, Mike and Sarah expanded their auto shop into a successful chain of family-friendly garages across the state. Their business model included a comfortable waiting area with a play space for children and a commitment to hiring single parents and offering flexible schedules. On the 5th anniversary of the rainy night that brought them together, they established a foundation in both their names, dedicated to supporting single-parent families with emergency assistance, job training, and childcare scholarships. The plaque in the foundation's office bears a simple inscription: "Sometimes the worst storms lead us exactly where we need to be." Emma, now 10, has no memory of the man in the photograph. Instead, she has Mike, who taught her to change oil, helped with her science projects, and never missed a dance recital. Jason, 12 and the spitting image of his father, has blossomed under Sarah's nurturing influence, discovering a love for both mechanics and marketing that perfectly bridges his parents' talents. Their story, which began with a flat tire in the rain and survived a shocking revelation, reminds us that family isn't always about blood or perfect beginnings. Sometimes it's built through choice, forgiveness, and the courage to trust again after heartbreak. As Mike often says when asked about their unusual journey, the best mechanics know that sometimes you have to strip everything down to its basic parts before you can rebuild something stronger than before. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about love, resilience, and the unexpected connections that change our lives. Remember, even the darkest clouds can bring the most beautiful beginnings.